Hey you guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be featuring you my Girlish Idol Lyriquor deck after the support from Twinkle Melody and playtesting against the meta. Now this is a deck that I've worked very hard on. It's one of the more budget options from Twinkle Melody considering how low the prices are already. This is pretty low on the bracket. And if you're just looking for a very fun deck to get into, then this is one that I highly suggest. It's got a unique play style, it's very fun, and it's surprisingly extremely strong. And with the way that I have it built right here, I hope that you guys enjoy how I play this out. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on this profile. So for the start of the deck, we play 4 copies of Girlish Idol Lyriquor, just an amazing RRR grade 3 that was introduced to us in Twinkle Melody. She has 3 Vanguard abilities and they read as follows. Her first ability is when placed, you choose up to 2 order cards from your drop zone and add them to your hand. And then her second ability is when any player's unit intercepts, this unit gets 10,000 power until the end of the battle. And then finally her third ability states, when it attacks the Vanguard, if your order was played this turn, you may counterblast 1 and your opponent must intercept as much as possible. Now those are 3 effects and I know that it was a lot, but essentially speaking, this grade 3 is set up to work with the newest order card introduced in this set called Lyrical Veil. You're going to use Lyrical Veil's effect turn by turn and combine it with the superior calls and the intercepting that happens when you use Lyrical Veil's ability. Combine with her counterblast and force all of your opponent's rear guards into the Guardian Circle by intercepting. And then once they intercept, she'll get 10,000 power added onto her on top of whatever force marker you choose and the boosting that she has. So with all of that said and done, this card focuses on board wiping your opponent and creating a strong center column so that you can attack with. The cool thing that's very important to note is that her second ability is an offensive and defensive ability, as it states when any player's unit intercepts, this unit gets 10,000 power until the end of that battle, which is very important to note because this deck itself is actually pretty tanky in the sense of, since you're using Lyrical Veil to superior call your units back to the board, and you're giving all of the units on play on both sides of the board the ability to intercept, that means that once you intercept with just a grade 1, that's 10k, you'll place in the Guardian Circle, and then she'll get 10k on her own. So with one grade 1 unit, you're already at 33,000 defensive power. And that's where this deck's advantage is drawn from, is by combining Lyrical Veil with her, you're not using your hand as much as you're using your board, and then because her first ability allows you to recycle Lyrical Veil, you're going to be able to continuously do this over and over again. And you do this in the sense of rewriting her, which gets you more force markers. So based off all of the effects that we have on this card that I've just stated, we now know that this deck is focused on 2 things. It can play the grind game by writing continuously to get more Lyrical Veils, and then it can play the defensive game by forcing your grade 1s, 0s to be interceptors and getting 10,000 power on its own, and then she has board wipe. So all of those abilities combined make her an extremely strong unit and very aggressive too. It allows you to switch playstyles up on each turn so that this way you can focus on when you want to be offensive and when you want to be defensive, therefore allowing you to control your aggressive plays later in the game and playing the grind game out as you want to rewrite her more to get more markers. So Lyriquor is just an amazing card for a budget deck, and even though she has all these abilities, since they all activate on the Vanguard Circle, they're very simple to learn for a newer player who's interested in learning Bermuda as well. For our next grade 3, we play 4 copies of Rose Princess Phalania. Rose Princess Phalania is another new grade 3 introduced in Twinkle Melody. She has the following effects, which is on the rear guard or Guardian Circle. If any player's units were to intercept this turn, she gets 10,000 power plus 10,000 shield. She has the other ability, when placed, you counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, and return up to 2 Lyrical Veils from your drop zone to your hand. So this card is just another extender of the deck. It's very important that you get Lyrical Veil, as with our main Vanguard being Lyriquor, we want to be able to see our Lyrical Veils every single turn, and sometimes we may not be able to always get the re-ride, even with all of our drawing and searching. So having another card that allows us to extend our plays into getting our Lyrical Veils is very important, as Lyrical Veil is a very key card to our strategy, so it's necessary that we see it. Going to our grade 2s, I play 2 copies of Top Idol Aqua. This card has the ability to reuse some of our on-place units, and we do have effects that we want to activate from being on-placed, or we have effects we activated the previous turn that we want to go into the next turn to reuse. So this card is just another recycling unit that helps us extend to our plays to get more Lyrical Veils. And the 5,000 power that she gets as well doesn't hurt at all, as this deck's main weakness is that Its defensive plays are strong, but its offensive plays are not as strong without the help of force markers and triggers. So therefore, having a unit that can get power on its own makes this deck a lot more threatening. For our next grade 2, I play 3 copies of Choco, Loveheart, Liselotte. Now, since we play Aqua, I'm going to obviously be playing Liselotte with this deck, as the early game rush that Aqua and Liselotte add to the deck is very helpful. But we play Liselotte in here. I play her at 3 of, simply because Liselotte's ability to get us additional board and additional soul is amazing. This card overall is just an additional +1 to the deck and one of Bermuda's best grade 2s, so I just find it necessary to play in the deck. Moving on to our next grade 2, I play 4 copies of Customized Service Maxine. Her ability, when placed in the Vanguard circle, you discard a card from your hand to search out your Lyrical Veil. Lyrical Veil is such a key piece to our strategy that we need to see it in order for our deck to be successful, so being able to get access to that card early game is very important. And since we can use Lyricor's effect to, on place, ride her and then get the 2 Lyrical Veils back, we'll be able to use Lyrical Veil on the turn that we have her and build up our board and rush our opponent early. So Maxine overall is only used for her Vanguard ability. She doesn't add anything else to the deck other than the more consistency bonus that she gives us when looking out for our Lyrical Veils. Now finally, for the last grade 2 is 4 copies of Lyrical Veil itself. Lyrical Veil has the following effect. Cost, Soul Blast 2, discard a Lyrical Veil from your hand. Choose up to 2 grade 2 or less unit cards from your drop zone and call them to the rear guard circle. Choose any number of players' rear guards and until the end of your opponent's next turn, they get intercept and can intercept from the back row. So Lyrical Veil itself does a lot and it does have a hefty cost, but this card is the key card to everything that we do in the deck. She is important to our offense, our defense, and to our board wipe strategy with Lyriquor. I use Lyrical Veil to make up for the lack of hand advantage that this deck has, to build back board with all of the grade 2s and 1 units that you already guarded with, or just using over and over again to get more resources. She gets rid of your board when you play it because you're going to combine this card with Lyriquor and make all of your opponents intercept, so they'll all be placed in the Guardian Circle, so that gets rid of all the rear guards. And then since we have cards like Maxine and Phalania that allow us to recycle this, we always get this card back in a pair. Although this card is in order, and I definitely think that we need more order support in order for this deck to be better, this card alone is actually really, really powerful. And I do want to see this used in more decks, but for now, I'm happy with the copies of Lyrical Veil that we currently have. For our grade 1s, I play 2 copies of Special Message Ourora. Ourora is nothing more than just another extender in the deck, allowing us to drop and draw so we can search out for any cards that we need, whether it be Maxine or Phalania or Lyriquor herself, or just to get rid of whatever we need to find other pieces. 2 copies of Mini Sparkle Parum. So in our deck, we do Soul Blast 2 almost every single turn, simply because Lyrical Veil costs a Soul Blast of 2. And as I stated earlier, one of the main weaknesses of this deck is that we want to make our aggressive plays usually lack power. So her ability to get 10,000 power when you Soul Blast 2 during the turn, which means that even if she's not in play, but you Soul Blast 2 during the turn, she'll still get the power, is very helpful. And because we play Lyrical Veil, and this is a grade 2 or less unit, we can always call it back to the board whenever we find it. 4 copies of Fresh Star Coral. In this deck, I am playing the Coral package. I believe that the Coral package is a lot better than the grade 1 promo, simply because the grade 1 promo, while it gives itself board and moves it over and you get a soul charge from that, this deck needs to draw into Maxine. You need to see Maxine every single game, because if you do not see Maxine, then you're going to have a very hard time. Unless you already drew into your Lyrical Veils, then Maxine becomes irrelevant. But if you have not drawn to your pair of Lyrical Veils, then you want to be able to draw in as many cards as possible to see Maxine out. One of the worst feelings that you'll ever have with this deck is when you go to grade 3 and you haven't seen any of your order cards yet. Or another worst feeling that happens with this deck, but it's not as bad, is when you have to give up your first turn or give up going first because you drew into Maxine last turn and you're already at grade 2, and you have to ride into Maxine in order to make your grade 3 turn actually threatening. That has happened to me once or twice, simply because the order cards are not searchable, so therefore we have to be able to draw into them, which is why we need the coral package. The coral package overall is just a lot better than the grade 1 promo, and this card lets you soul charge when placed anyway. And since we have Lyrical Veil to call it back, there's no difference between this other than the fact that this one gives you draw, the other one gives you board, but I value the draw more. For my last grade 1, I play 4 copies of Mermaid Idol Sedna. Mermaid Idol Sedna is the grade 3 search for the deck. We really want to ride into Lyriquor every single turn to get back our orders, or we want to see Phalania to get back our orders so that we can keep playing already on Lyriquor, and she gets power, which makes our offensive plays more threatening. Moving on to my triggers. My trigger lineup for this deck is very simple. I play 4 copies of Love Hope Rina, 4 copies of Direct Sign Pursh, 4 copies of Glittery Baby Lene. Now, I do want to give a quick little explanation on why I'm playing the draw PG Sentinels. I understand that with some Lyriquor players, they've decided to go the full 12 crit route and play the 30k Sentinel simply because Lyrical Veil will bring it back and you can intercept with it to get over cards that have heavy guard restrict. But my issue with that is that is not the smartest decision to me, because in Lyriquor you don't get much card advantage through hand anyway, and your card advantage comes from the fact that you're calling units from your drop zone back to your board and then you can intercept with them later. But you only get 2 calls, so that means that every turn you're giving up one of your calls to call a grade 0 back that only has 5,000 power and another unit back. That to me is not what I want to do. I want to be as aggressive as possible and call back my most aggressive units when I can. So therefore I'd rather have this, plus there are cards that we want to draw into, so being able to see a draw trigger to do that is more than helpful. 4 copies of Handmade Lover Elena. Heal triggers are good, nothing more to say there. And then 1 copy of Angelic Star Coral. You have to play 1 copy of Angelic Star Coral in order to get your coral package off, so we need 1 copy of her. And this is my trigger lineup. So my trigger lineup is generic. It's 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. You want to play it this way because with 8 critical, we can maintain all of our aggression, and if we need to, we can call the criticals back for defensive purposes. Heal triggers because this deck, there is no OTK variation of this deck at all. It's a very slow, grindy deck out. You want to grind out for more Lyriquors, more Lyrical Veil beatdown. And the draw Sentinel PG, as I've already explained, we want to draw into our pieces, and we just want to be able to guarantee a perfect guard against our attacks. Alright you guys, as you know with all my deck profiles, I like to tell people what markers I think is best to play this deck with. And from my build, with my experience, I believe that Force 2 is the most viable option to go. However, in this deck, Force 1 is not a bad play either. Force 2 is the main one you want to go into simply because, as I stated before, Lyriquor on her own, she can become a powerhouse with the right cards around her. However, in certain setups, you might need the Force 1. If you are having trouble finding your Lyrical Veil pieces and you're not going to be able to go into your Lyrical Veil turns at the beginning of when you go into your first Lyriquor, then going into that Force 1 isn't as bad, simply because without the Lyrical Veil play or your opponent not having units you'd intercept with, you're not going to be able to get that additional 10,000 power on the Force 2. And if you don't have the correct board to power up your Force 2, simply because you can't use Parum to get the additional 2 Soul Blast for the 10,000 power, you're going to need the extra power for your attacks to actually matter. So having Force 1 in those situations is helpful to do, as you're already playing the grind game with your opponent now more than ever to find out those Lyrical Veil pieces. However, if the game is going in your favor and you already have Lyrical Veil set up for your Lyriquor turns, then going Force 2 is best, as now you're creating a more aggressive play every single turn as you grind out your opponent and get more Force 2 on your boards. That is it for the deck profile, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I personally really have fun with this deck. I do not think that this is a top tier deck at all, as I've play tested against Astral Poets, Shiranui, Nova Grapplers, Maelstrom, and Angels. There are still a few complications that this deck has that need to be worked out, and then hopefully with the next wave of support Bermuda Triangle will get during later the year, it'll be able to solve that. But I think that as long as you know your matchup, you'll be able to do well with this deck. But as of right now, that is the best variation of this deck that I can think of. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit the like button. It helps the channel out a lot. And If your friend wants to play Lyriquor, do not forget to share this video with them, as you can use this deck as a template for them to build it themselves. Also, do not forget to subscribe to my channel as well, and hit the notification bell. I have plenty of new deck profiles coming out very soon, as well as some discussion videos I'm going to be dropping on this channel as well, talking about the future of this channel, as with the new releases of information with Cardfight Vanguard Overdress, I feel it's about time we had a talk. So therefore, I'm going to give my opinions on that and the future of this channel, and how I'll be exploring V Premium as well as D format, and what deck I'm going to be playing first and investing in with the drop of the new format as well. Alright guys, I have to go now. You enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace.